Everyone, we are going to call the meeting to order. Today is Monday, November 6th, 2023 at 9 a.m. We are at the Diamond Head Beach Resort. All counselors are present, town manager, town attorney, and town clerk. If you please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
We come before you and ask for guidance as we respond to the request before us on this agenda. We praise and thank the many blessings bestowed on us each day. We pray to enlighten each one of us here to do what is best for the people of Fort Myers Beach, who have put their trust in us as we listen to public comment and to each other. Help us to reach the decisions that will best serve the people of Fort Myers Beach, both now and in the future. Grant us the grace to be kind, truthful, and courageous when faced with difficult choices, and not let us lose sight of the common good. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the final agenda. Is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
So moved.
Got a motion by Counselor King.
What's his name?
I would just request that we pull item E, because it says review and approve. Item, and if in the consent agenda.
Foundation part.
I don't have any objection with it, but it says to review it, and I think
We can certainly do that. Any objection to that? Any other changes? Bill, is that a second then?
Yes, I'll second.
Second and with amended, pulling item E, the FMB Community Foundation flag design. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. Approval of the final agenda is passed. Public comment.
I have nobody signed up.
No one? Is there anyone out there that would like to have 3 minutes to talk to us? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Local achievements and recognitions. Counselor Veach?
Yeah, I'll first the opening of the baseball field. That was a great event. I think it really went really well. It was so fun watching the camp with these little kids. They would just hit the ball and run anywhere, and see them try to get them back on the baseline. That was adorable. And the other thing is, last night there was a couple that they locked themselves out of their truck at a beach access, and I was out there, and one of a new base guy, I don't really know him, but a young guy came out and stayed with them until the service got there, and even drove their elderly mother to town hall to use the restroom. And I thought that was really going above and beyond.
I think I've seen him before. He's seen him on the weekends all the time.
Armand. Yes, his name is Armand.
Armand.
He's wonderful.
Anything else? That's it. Council Woodson?
I was just sitting here thinking, it seems like forever since we've been here. We had a long break. No, I'm just excited to see all the new openings that are happening. We've got a couple of them coming up this week, grand openings and ribbon cuttings. We had the farmers market at Moss Marine that started this past Wednesday. Had the ribbon cutting there, Bayside Park, opening up now for our concert series every Sunday. So it's just exciting. Things are happening, and I'm so happy.
All right. Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Yes, there's some old news and new news on this, and it's, I guess, a recognition of sorts, certainly a local achievement. I attended the ad hoc committee for the beach school. It's our first meeting post interlocal agreement, and the beach school will be finished on November 29th, which I think I posted the other day. But what's developed since, and I say this so because I know we got a lot of busy folks here, and I just want you to make a note on your calendars. It's still tentative at this point. So let's keep that in mind, and I would certainly want to make the public aware that the school itself is likely to open on Tuesday, December 5th. And what they're hoping to do is have the kids all kind of line up outside the school and kind of march in the school together. And so the plan is to have students and the families arrive around 7. Staff rise around 7:15. Students, again at 7:15, students and the teachers will march from Bay Oaks to the school. The kids then will have some breakfast. School starts at 7:55. And then at 8:30, the kids will come back out where there'll be a program and a ribbon cutting to open the new school. That's at 8:30, again, December 5th. At 8:30 a.m. is the ceremony, but I think it would be great to see the members of the public come out and cheer the kids as they march into the school. Again, that appears to be at this point the actual formal of the process of the kids marching to school will be at 7:15 in the morning, and then the program at 8:30 in the morning. I did notice, I'm sure it's an oversight by our friends at the Lee County School District, they don't have anybody from the island speaking on the program. I would respectfully encourage them to have one of the parents from the ad hoc committee, parents of the kids at the beach school. I would encourage them to include them in the program. It'd be nice to have somebody from the island as part of that program. Again, that's at 8:30, December 5th, Tuesday. And then it concludes around 8:45, and then refreshments, and then, there'll be tours of the beach school at 8:45 for folks who want to see the new building and on all the progress that they have made. So again, this is still relatively tentative, but I know people are busy, and if they can at least make a note on their calendars, I think they would like to have a nice turnout from the public there to encourage these kids who've been through quite a bit thus far. So that's all I've got, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Jim, I
Yes.
just might have, I had a meeting, I was in a meeting with Dr. Bernier on Friday. While they wanted to have it the 5th, I don't think it might be December 4th, only because some of the people are not able to be there on the 5th that they invited. So I don't know for sure. He said right now, he said he thinks it's moving more towards the 4th rather than the 5th.
Very good. Well, that's fresh information. I just got this email this morning, and it was a draft, and again, heavily marked tentative. So I guess as we all prepare, it looks like the opening will be either the 4th, which is a Monday,
Both days.
or the 5th. Yeah, maybe just keep it simple. I know we have a town meeting on the 4th at 9 o'clock, which will give us a little bit of a pinch, but maybe if this thing is at 8:30, maybe we could start just a little bit late. I don't know how all that works, Mr. Mayor, but we'll figure something out.
Or we could broadcast from a remote location.
There you go. Could you maybe give us an update on this on the 20th?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm sure we'll know more by then.
Anything else?
That's all I've got. Thank you.
Counselor King?
I've got about three things. First, I'd like to recognize the town manager, Andy Hyatt. Last week, he made his 6 months here on the job. Thanks for wanting to be here. Thanks for what you've accomplished so far, and thanks for what you're going to be doing. Appreciate it. To piggyback on what Councilor Veach said, it was a great night out at the Little League ball field for the grand reopening. Thanks to Major League Baseball, Scott's, and 7-Eleven for their monetary and other contributions. Thanks to the Fort Myers Beach Community Foundation for the $9,500 for the concession stand equipment. Thanks also to ICS Materials for their work on the site. Thanks to the Minnesota Twins and the Mighty Muscles for the ball gloves. Thanks to Coca-Cola for the beverages. Beach Talk Radio was there. Thank you. Gator Country 101.9 on your radio dial. Thanks for being there. And thanks to Cultural Parks and Recreation Director Jeff Hauge for all his efforts for that. And the Parks and Rec staff, they were there grilling hot dogs and serving food. So thanks also to all the staff that showed up as well for that. And then I'd just like to shine a little light on HR manager Talisa Oliveira for the activities she's done for the employees. You know, I was able to help judge the Halloween door decorating contest, and it was fun. And I can't understand how the manager and the operations and compliance director finished last in that competition, but especially since the operations manager had his full Alf costume on that day. So it was just, wow. That's all for me. Thanks.
Could have heard a pin drop almost on that one.
Ouch, it bombed.
All right, thank you. Benefits are going last. Most of my stuff was covered. Just two quick things, since it'll be before our next meeting. Welcome Tuna Skin back. They're going to have their grand opening on November 18th. And the new place called Mr. Waves will be opening on November 10th. So go out and support those local businesses, and it's nice to see two more opening up. Next, we've got advisory committee items, reports, and appointments. Barbara Hill from CellCAD is here. Come on up, Barbara.
Good morning, members of council and staff. My name is Barbara Hill. I chair the advisory board for our Mound House in Newton Beach Park called CellCab. CellCab's mission, I'm going to read this if you don't mind. CellCab's mission as an advisory board is to ensure and promote the mission of the Mound House and Newton Beach Park according to best practices of museums and requirements of the Florida Community Trust. It is this state agency that provided the town with grant funding to purchase these properties. First, we as CellCab members want to take this opportunity to thank all of you council members for your support in quickly bringing the Mound House back to life since Hurricane Ian. We are also grateful to town staff and especially to Jeff Hauge and museum manager Adam Knight for their hard work in providing programs of excellence to the public. In the coming months, the staff and CellCab will work to update the strategic plan and which will guide future programs, operations, and development. Several initiatives for naming rights and collections management policies will be developed once vacant positions are filled. We also want to thank the Friends of the Mound House for their generous support of Mound House lectures and events, as well as online marketing program funded annually through TDC grants. We recognize Newton Beach Park after Hurricane Ian will never be the same. With the park's building and public amenities destroyed, this property is now being used for the town's recovery purposes. However, in keeping with the town's agreement with the state, this property will soon return to its core educational and passive recreational mission. We look forward to seeing this new site plan, which we understand will include the maintaining of a view corridor to the Gulf, the return of parking and restroom facilities, a dedicated space for a tent for temporary events, and native landscaping and interpretive signage. CellCab in the past did vote to recommend 2 projects for which we can be resurrected and also implemented in this new site plan. One was actually a recommendation by Jim Adderholt some time back, and of course Jim is our liaison to council, was the swing set to replace the unused bocce ball court. We'd like to put that back on the front burner. And there was an entrance gateway sign that was supposed to be placed on Estero Boulevard, which we felt would provide greater exposure to the park. We'd like for those 2 to also be considered in this new site plan. CellCab voted recently to respectfully recommend to council that this is a perfect time to rename the park, since the Newtons never did donate this property to the town. Several ideas now are including Calusa Park, Seven Seas Park, Gulfside Botanical Park, Gulfside Park. Some of these were for the council's consideration. We welcome any input from the community as to their ideas. We have time. The strategic plan for this park's future programs and operations will begin next year. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to share that I did drive by this morning on my way here, and the sand piles are now gone. The scours have been filled in the park at Newton, and it's starting baby steps. But
And of course, it was the right thing to do for the town and FEMA. We had other things to do. That property was flattened, and for all the right reasons, it's been used for the best use possible. Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Barbara, I was just going to ask you,
Thank
going
you,
to
John.
add a little color to the swing set concept. These weren't traditional swing sets. These were, the swing set itself was like an arch, and then the swings would be under the arch, and they would swing out towards the ocean right next to that seawall. So you could kind of sit there and watch the sunset and be on a swing, and couldn't sleep on them. They're very interesting and artistic swing sets. Well,
These were
swings,
for adults, not for children, just so you know.
well, kids could probably make it work, but you have such great history here on the island, Barbara. Could you explain a little bit the story behind the Seven Seas name suggestion for Newton Park?
Sure, the Newtons lived on this property and they had two cottages. One was the one that was just recently destroyed by Ian, and that was their home. And then they had a guest home, which was an older cottage, which had to be taken down when we were evaluating the use of that property and decided to save the building that was the more practical for us because it had more square footage for actual events and programming. And so they had been on the island, I don't know for how many years. He, I believe, was involved with real estate and obviously was good friends with Firestone, Edison, Ford, part of that group. So he sort of lent a little bit of cachet to Fort Myers Beach back in the day.
So you'd be soliciting suggestions from the public as well today, correct? For
Absolutely.
ideas and suggestions. Again, nothing's imminent, but at least we need to start thinking about is what you're suggesting.
Exactly. As I say, we do have time because I know it'll be a while before we get the parking lot back in place, get the site plan approved, get all of the, the restrooms. I guess TDC is funding that from what I understand. So those will be returning. But this is a great time for us to reevaluate just what we want that park to be. It will always be an educational and passive educational park for the public and for visitors, but also having practical needs met, such as parking and restrooms, which is completely appropriate.
And then lastly, because you're such a good resource, explain this relationship that we have with the state that presents certain criteria that we have to utilize as we maintain Newton Park.
Right. This was the criteria from which we were able to receive that grant funding, and I'm not quite sure. Does anybody remember the amount that the state gave us to purchase that park? I know it was like $2 million in that.
So in return for state funding, we had to agree to a certain set of criteria.
We do,
Yeah, okay.
and we have to maintain programming for the education of the uniqueness of our island, its wildlife, its ecosystem, its botanical park, which we had utilized with some of the native landscaping, all of that to kind of help bring greater awareness and appreciation of the uniqueness of this island, which is sort of the core mission. Passive recreation
Very good.
implies, there was like a nature walk, Gail Crabtree does these nature walks. And that is also part of our educational program, which we hope to continue as time, when we get to that point and the park is progressing.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Any questions, Bill?
Yes, I would just say, I know it's been a long time, but I mentioned coming up with maybe some kind of Hurricane Ian memorial or art piece or something for Newton Park. Would that be consistent with the uses for the park?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that we should all think about what the possibilities are for possible naming. But I hesitate to name a park after a disaster.
I'm not talking about naming the park, but having some kind of, in the park, having some kind of memorial for the hurricane.
We could do that in any of our parks. We could do that at Bayside as well. So the interesting thing, because this is a town-owned park, so you now have activated the Bayside Park, and to have this as your Gulf Side Park, again, belonging to the town of Fort Myers Beach would be, I think, a greater identifier in terms of, what it is that the town provides to the public and to its community. So, yeah, Hurricane Ian was a different story altogether. I've lived through Hurricane Donna. This was twice as bad. And so, I don't know, memorials. I think we all will remember, certainly in our lifetimes. Any other questions?
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, thank you.
see, and then, yeah. Threw me off there for a minute. Mic check, okay. Are we still on the live stream? Is that up? Can you tell? It's back on, okay. Now we'll continue with the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from October 16th, 2023?
So moved.
Got a motion by Counselor King,
Second.
second by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We got consent agenda E, consent agenda. Item E was pulled by Counselor Beach. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I just would like to, just review and approve. I'd just like to be able to see it. That's something we have the ability to do.
To see well, it's in the packet, but I can
And
show
also
it
to
you.
promote it.
It's very nice looking. Let me see if I can pull it up on here. Oh, there it is.
What page is it?
It is page 86 in the packet.
Okay.
Anybody? I think it's very nice.
With that, I'll move to approve item E.
Motion to approve by Counselor Veach. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is the approval of the remainder of the consent agenda, A through H. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by
Sorry.
Counselor King,
I'll second.
seconded by Counselor Veach. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next is ordinance 23 public hearing, ordinance 23-16, small scale map amendment for 21-471 Widgeon Terrace. This is the first reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 23-16 entitled an ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending town of Fort Myers Beach adopted future land use map dated January 1st, 1999 for a portion of the property located at 21-471 Widgeon Terrace and part of the adjacent common element property of Flamingo Harbor Condominium, Fort Myers Beach, providing for clarifications as necessary, providing for conflict of law, scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. We'll now open the first public hearing and go ahead. And
Morning, counselors, staff.
Morning.
My name is Jason Smalley. I'm with the town's planning and zoning office. So as was said in the short name here, today is the first reading in regards to a small scale map amendment. This is to change what was on the maps as wetlands area into another future land use that would theoretically allow for development. Today, the staff is asking for a date certain for the second reading. This small scale amendment will be sent up to the state where they will have an opportunity to appeal anything in that. But the second reading is where it will be approved. And then hopefully by that point, we should have any appeals if the state determines that they need to do so. Staff is here for any questions that you may have, and the applicant's representatives are also here.
yes, sir.
I would just say, Jason, for those who might be watching, can you just sort of, from a 10,000 foot perspective, explain what we're doing here?
Absolutely. So prior to now, going back to the 1999 comprehensive plan and future land use maps, the area on the bay side that was determined to be wetlands area, that was undevelopable by our codes, and the state had an interest in it as well. So the intent here is to change that delineation. There will be some review of whether or not this area was erroneously described as wetlands. That will be part of the process with the state to make that determination through the application package that's being presented to them right here today. If there is any questions from the state as to whether or not the information that the applicant has provided to them either needs more detail, or if they just want to appeal the decision, the state can do that. But if the small scale amendment is accepted, It would allow theoretically for the development of that area. I believe in this case, the original request was for a swimming pool. So the rear of somebody's property was contained within this area and was therefore undevelopable for normal accessory structures and such. So this would allow for that if the state accepts the small scale amendment.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Jason, there seems to be quite a bit of history with this. When did this whole process start? Are they just, is most of the history referring to the next door neighbor who did something similar?
So in my experience, this was something that had been brought to us when I first came here. So this would have been in the early portion of 2022 is my first experience with it. If there is a history before that, that would be relevant. I would defer to the applicant's proxy if they would like to speak to that timeline, because unfortunately I'm not well versed in what happened before I got here.
Okay. Any other questions for Jason? Thanks, Jason. Applicant?
Good morning. I am Zachary Levatru with Retzel and Andrus here on behalf of the applicant, the owners of 21471 Widgeon Terrace. So this has been in the works for a few years. Some of the things we did to get to this point where we worked with Hans Wilson to conduct an environmental study to confirm that there were no wetlands in the proposed site, nor were there any wetlands in the past on this site. Additionally, we confirmed with the DEP that there are no wetlands in the area that we are converting from wetlands to mixed residential. Another thing we received was approval from the Condo Association to take some of the limited common element, which is the land that stretches from the property line to the bay, and use a small portion of that land for the pool. So, you know, simply put, we're just here to close the loop on this, and our request is for a small scale future land use map amendment to change the designation from wetlands to mixed residential so that we can place the pool on the property. And we just ask this issue be moved forward to the second reading. So about some of the history of this, you do have in your packet the in 2001, the neighbor did an administrative interpretation on this, pretty much the same exact issue, and changed the future land use from wetlands to mixed residential. We try to do that later and do an administrative interpretation ourselves, but the timeline had expired. There is a process to administratively fix factual errors in the future land use, but the timeline had expired, so that's why we're here before you today. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any other questions for Zachary?
I'm just kind of curious because what I was reading is saying that the soil is hydric in nature, which to me means wetlands. And I'm looking at the report you said. It simply you mentioned the main components of the soil type associated with this property would be hydric in nature, and hydric is usually defined as something that's either seasonally or regularly flooded and makes the soil anaerobic. So what am I missing in this report that says that it's not a wetland?
Well, they conducted boring of the property there, and the ultimate conclusion from Hans Wilson was that there was no wetlands in the area, and where they did find wetlands, because the environmental study did two things. One, they confirmed through the boring that there in that grassy area that you see on the aerials now, that there is no wetlands there. There was no wetlands in the past. And then it did establish where the wetlands were, which is the riprap on the east side of the property and the mangroves there. That is going to still remain wetlands.
And how long has the riprap and the lawn been there?
I think the aerials from like 1999, when the future land use map was created, do show vegetation in that backyard area. And so that's one of the reasons we did the environmental study, is to show that it was just vegetation and there wasn't wetlands underneath, because they were able to determine that there was no wetlands from the boring.
Any other questions for Zachary? All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
We'll now open it up for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to speak Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, bring it back for discussion to the council. Any discussion? Is there a motion to move this to the November 20th, 2023, 9 a.m. council meeting?
So moved.
A motion by Counselor King. I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
It should be a roll call.
Roll call. Okay, sorry. Counselor King,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
Counselor King, or Counselor Beach.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Amy. This item is Resolution 23-135, variance 202-30175 for 5137 Estero Boulevard. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, denying variance VAR 202-30175 to allow a garage closer to the Estero Boulevard street right-of-way line than the principal building for the property located at 5137 Estero Boulevard, providing for clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, scrivener's errors, severability, and providing an effective date. If any town council member has had any ex parte communication to disclose, please let us know the subject discussed and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, any correspondence that you received, or observations made of the site. Any ex parte communication?
Driven past it.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
I've had numerous conversations with the applicants, but I don't believe it has been this particular subject matter.
I also have had conversations, but not about this subject matter, about the property.
The same for me.
Yeah, same with me. I've been to the property and been on the roof and know that story.
Jason Smalley has been qualified as an expert already by this town council, and based on his education and experience has been accepted as an expert in the field of land use, planning, and development in the town of Fort Myers Beach. Are there any other individuals who would like to be qualified as an expert witness on behalf of the applicant at this time? Gary?
She has been,
She's been, okay.
qualified.
You're
previously.
good. Has the property owner applicant seen a copy of the agenda backup materials from staff? Nodding their head, yes, they have. Will the staff please proceed with the presentation on the item?
We need to be sworn in.
Oh, did I miss a step?
Turn the page.
Oh, I started on the wrong side. See, this is what happens when you give me laminated things.
Doesn't matter.
I forgot to put 1 and 2.
I had it all set up. Anyway, do you want me to start over?
No,
Okay.
no, everything you do is good. I just want to explain the process.
I think you should explain the process. I clearly.
Okay, very good. Okay, variances are quasi judicial in nature, like this one, which requires our public hearing to comply with procedural requirements established in Florida law and in our land development code. Quasi judicial proceedings are less formal than proceedings before circuit court, but are more formal than the remainder of our meeting and follow basic standards of due process requiring certain notices, application of the correct standards, and decisions made on competent and substantial evidence presented to the town council in written documents or oral testimony. The town council will evaluate the testimony and information for each item and draw a conclusion regarding whether the criteria in the land development code or state law as may be applicable has been satisfied. Pure speculation or mere opinion not based on competent facts cannot be legally considered by the town council in evaluating an agenda item. Testimony by professionals who are qualified as experts in a particular area is considered competent evidence by the Florida courts, as well as testimony by neighbors and residents who have fact-based information such as minutes, surveys, engineering reports, etc., or testimony based on personal information. If you intend to speak, please keep this in mind. When you come forward, please state your name clearly for the record, whether or not you've been sworn in, and your qualifications or interest in the matter. And
All those wishing to be sworn in, stand please and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All parties have been sworn.
Okay.
Okay, we can go
Now-
ahead and start with the testimony.
You don't want me to finish the rest of this just to make sure that we're doing it efficiently?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. At this time, if any town council member has a conflict of interest that would prohibit them from voting on any items, please disclose this for the record at this time so that we can assure that we have a quorum present to review the item.
None.
Any? None?
None.
Okay. Have you sworn him in? Flip it over. Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you. Good morning, town councilors. Again, my name is Jason Smalley. I'm with the town's planning and zoning office. So following the storm, the applicant's home was substantially damaged to the point that they have decided to remove the home. I believe the storm had a first crack at it. But what is left is the structure of the garage. And the issue at hand today is one where, as the applicants look to rebuild their home, they will have a garage that will be forward of the primary structure. So that is the variance that is being requested today, is to approve the placement of, well, the existing placement of the garage, because the garage still stands and is still in a usable state. So they would like to continue to use that garage. The site plans that staff has been provided with show that the proposed primary structure, their home that they are going to be rebuilding, is going to be behind this garage. And that is what's necessitating the variance request today, is to continue to have that garage structure forward of their eventual home primary structure. Staff is here for any discussion about timelines. I believe the town's floodplain administrator is here for questions. If y'all would like to talk to her, the applicant and their representative here today. And I'm here for any questions that you may have regarding our process.
Jason, just a quick question. It looks like it's kind of small, but it doesn't look like there's any issues with the site plan as far as side setbacks or rear setbacks, right? It's just the structure behind the.
Absolutely. They will be respecting all of the relevant setbacks, heights. They will be meeting all life safety and flood codes with the construction of the new home behind the garage.
Any other questions for Jason?
I just, excuse me, I just have a question because this is the way it was prior to Hurricane Ian. So wouldn't the build back clauses, I mean, I don't understand why the variance, because wouldn't there just be build back clauses that say go back the way it was?
Well, what they would have, remember the build back policy doesn't vest nonconformities necessarily. If the structure existed, we could variance it in the place that it was. But the whole point is they would be obligated to attach the new home to the existing garage for the garage to be understood to be part of the primary structure. If they stay disconnected, then we have one accessory structure, again, in front of the proposed rebuild of the primary structure, the home. So I think it's just a physical connection that necessitates having to do the variance.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's attached, then the entire, I mean, that nonconformity is a problem, because then the new house is under the 50% rule, right? Because it's attached to a nonconforming structure.
I think it may be a question of what the lowest habitable floor would be, but I would defer to the floodplain administrator for a little bit of background information and a little bit of the implications of choices that the homeowner has made and how they interact with our flood codes.
Now, and this is an accessory structure, and my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it means that now this is like a permits and everything are separate between the accessory structure and the main home. Is that right?
I'm sorry, in permits for local concern or for FEMA floodplain?
What is the distinction? I mean, when does the accessory structure stand on its own as far as permitting, and when is it part of the property?
Well, the structure itself, as far as local permitting goes, would be independent. We would, if they wanted to do work specifically for this structure, they would pull a permit for it. Are you trying to get at the implications of how this relates to 50% rule? And
I'm trying to figure out, I mean, as an accessory structure, what's the difference between that and being attached?
so I think it's largely determined by the flood zone that you're in. A, coastal A, and V zones, they get more restrictive and they require less connectivity as you get into the V zones. But I think I would defer to the floodplain administrator for some of the more specific questions about the review here and what the implications are for FEMA code. For local code, it meets our local code from a matter of just how is it built, how is it placed. Today, we're just trying to get over the fact that we have this code language that it's forward of the primary structure. So if the concern is one of how does the new structure play into the 50% valuation or what the lowest floor level might be, I would defer to floodplain for that.
Let's have Kristen come up. Just maybe she can answer that a little better for Councilor Reach.
Hello, Kristen Schumacher, Town of Fort Myers Beach, floodplain manager. For the structure in question, as Jason Smalley said, it was a substantially damaged home. The garage stood, so they're allowed to keep the structure, and now it's an accessory structure. It's not connected to the home. That's the difference. It's to today's standards, it's not flood compliant, so it cannot be connected to the home. The difference, what happened was when the FEMA flood maps changed, November 17th, 2022, their property moved into coastal A zone. Is that better?
Yes.
Sorry. So it made the structure non-conforming and they could not attach it to the home. So therefore it has to stay as an accessory structure.
Any questions though?
Well, I think so. This variance is specifically to have an accessory structure roadward of the house. So if they managed to do some convoluted thing where they had, I don't know, a narrow hallway that went closer to the road, would that eliminate the need for this variance?
They cannot attach the accessory structure to the home. Is that what
I'm saying without.
if it came in front?
Yeah, and I don't have the space for that. I'm
I
just kind
don't
of
think
curious.
the design of the home would be possible for that. I mean, if you can get the home forward of the structure, which that's more of a Jason Smalley question for zoning. We're back and forth ping-ponging.
Yeah, well, I understand. So, but it does sound like you're saying, because I understood in the staff report that you're saying it's a design choice, but it sounds like, I mean, is it really feasible to come up with a design that would do this?
So to your point, if they created some sort of convoluted arm or archipelago that sort of wrapped around the front of the structure, I think you could probably design it in such a way that you could get a portion of the primary structure forward of the garage. Staff didn't get involved with trying to solve that issue too deeply with them. This was a design choice by the owners for their own reasons. So in most cases that this has come up, generally we just state that you should go ahead and attach it to the accessory structure and be done with the problem. But as Kristen has mentioned, there are other limitations here and other codes that need to be addressed. And because, as far as I understand, they are now in the coastal A zone and they are treated much like the V zone would be, that they wouldn't be allowed to actually connect that structure. So while the connection may solve our local issue of it being forward of the house, it would implicate other floodplain codes, which would make it non-compliant and would therefore be detrimental to the homeowners in the long run.
So then just to clarify, when you say it's design choice, it means maybe it is possible they can come up with a design. Doesn't mean it'd be a good design. Doesn't mean it'd be a practical design.
Staff is not planting their flag on it being a practical question. If they could do some sort of convoluted design to not necessitate this variance, but the flood codes themselves from my understanding, tend to be the driver of this situation. So this is an unfortunate outgrowth of meeting their floodplain regulation requirements. And it seemed to be the easier choice to ask for the variance than to try and balance so many competing flood concerns.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Jason? Thanks, Jason. Would the applicant like to come up and say a few words? Sure.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Kara Stewart, for the record, representing Amy and Rick Lowry from 5137 Estero Boulevard. The location or replacement, I should say, of this home is being placed where the original home in very close proximity was before. We are sandwiched between an existing pool that remains and this accessory structure. To locate the house, when we discuss our design choices, to locate the house closer to Estero Boulevard would really not be the most conducive design for this property in this situation. The house was destroyed. The rest of the structures remain on the property. We have a side yard. While the code requires a 7.5-foot side yard, we are providing a 15-foot side yard. The front structure along Estero Boulevard by code would be at 25 foot. The garage as it stands today, or the accessory structure, I believe is 45 foot from Estero Boulevard, narrowing the area between that garage and the side yard. So locating the house just behind it was really the most conducive for the property. Now it's interesting too, if you look at the site plan that we provided, the staircase that we have coming down from the front of the home is really only short by a few feet. If that staircase and the entry was just a little bit more forward, meaning we could have attached maybe this structure to the garage, again, the need for this variance would not exist because we would be compliant and our structure would no longer, from a setback perspective, be beyond the accessory structure. So with that, if you have any questions, I am here and the owner is here. We'll be happy to answer anything you may need.
Any questions for Kara?
Thank you.
Must have did a good job. Now open it up for public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this matter? If so, please come forward to the podium and identify yourself, provide your address and whether you were sworn in. Public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Are there any additional comments or rebuttal of closing statements from the applicant? No. I will now close the public hearing and request discussion or a motion from town council to approve with conditions, deny with reasons, or a continuance to a time certain. Councilor Reed?
I could just ask you one, sorry to go back, one question that we didn't ask is, when you sent out the information, we got any negative comments from any of the neighbors about this?
Staff is unaware of any negative comments given to us.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would move approval of Resolution 23-135.
Second.
Had a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, seconded by Councilor King. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Aye.
Councilor King,
Aye.
Councilor Woodson,
Aye.
Councilor Veach,
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. That brings us to our administrative agenda. Resolution 23-151, change order number 3 for Grubbs Emergency Services, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving a change order between the town and Grubbs Emergency Services for increasing contract time 60 days and increasing contract price for $1,250,392.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request to continue to add an additional 20,524 tons to our emergency berm so we can complete it. Of course, Dahlia wreaked some havoc on that. Chad's in the room, I believe, he stepped out. Okay, well, I'll turn it over to his director.
Yeah, this is basically, excuse me. Good morning. My name is Frankie Kropacek. I'm the Operations and Compliance Director for the Town of Fort Myers Beach. The additional funds were to do repairs and maintenance after said storm. And it'll approve it and rebuild it back to post-Ian standards.
And-
5% our cost.
And yeah, Frank, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
Frank, you're not asking for an increase of $1.2 million. You're asking for an increase of $65,153.50, which is the cost share for the town of 5%.
That is correct, sir.
Any questions for Frankie?
And I know this is probably something more of Chad's line, but we have this sand, but we also have the beach renourishment, which hopefully is coming up soon, which is a cheaper way to get sand. Is there, and I think I've heard from staff that part of this is because where some of this sand is being placed is not really suitable for being pumped on the beach. But
Chad's just walked in. He'll come up and answer your questions.
so Chad, the question is the interaction between this trucked in sand and the beach renourishment project that is imminent. How do they interact?
So sorry, Chad Schutz for the record, town staff. You're asking, we have a foreign sand source with something that's a little bit more native, on the order of, let's say, 1 million cubic yards versus maybe we're coming at 150,000 cubic yards from Immokalee. So yes, we are bringing in, quote unquote, non-native sand, but it is compatible by FDEP standards, and it will be diluted substantially with the native sand that we're also bringing on the beach.
So the question though is, are there any places where within this trucked in sand that it could be done with the pumped in sand from the renourishment? Or is it funding is different, or the location is incompatible with that?
Could you do me a favor and just start with the original question, or what's the crux of the issue, so I fully understand?
Well, this is, I know the trucked in sand is expensive, and like you said, it's not native.
Mhm.
And we are on the cusp of doing the beach renourishment, which is going to be a bigger project.
Mhm.
It's more financially efficient.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering, the question, I guess, basically is, why do this? Is there a compelling reason, like location or funding, that we're doing this instead of waiting for the renourishment?
And we are speaking to the FEMA berm project, or are we?
The Grub Emergency Services.
Right, so it's a matter of expediency. So we have from January to February to do this, number one. Number two, we're not permitted to bring sand from offshore necessarily to all the places that we want to go put sand that are outside of our permitted project area. So our permitted area for the borough sand that's offshore is only from Bowditch to Lanark, and then in the CW area. That's the only place where we're allowed to directly pump onto it. If you remember, we did a mod to our FDEP permit to allow for sand pumped from Matanzas to be put on, or from the Matanzas Pass Ebb Shoal to be pumped onto the Carlos Point Beach to bring that beach up to restore the elevation prior to Hurricane Ian. Something.
Chad, is it easier to just sum it up? They're two separate projects. This is for the berm. This is not for.
Two separate projects. We prioritized our trucking sand where we are not permitted to put dredge sand.
Okay.
So we're in line with your thinking. We wanted to make use of the dredge sand effective rate of, more or less $25 a cubic yard versus $100 a cubic yard. And we have done that as much as possible, given time constraints and permitting restraints.
Okay, that's a simple answer. That you're not allowed to, where you're putting this truck sand, you're just not allowed to do the
Yes, sir.
beach renourishment sand. All right.
Chad, you state in your report here, due to multiple factors, can you just let those that are listening at home, what are some of the multiple factors as to why we need another 14,600 cubic yards of sand?
Sure. I'll forward Coastal Engineering's 2 or 3 pager to the council for a more detailed report for the people at home. Several factors, something like, so we have a 1.4 multiplier from cubic yards to tonnage, and just being off 5 or 10% makes a big difference whenever you're bringing in hundreds, tens and tens of thousands of cubic yards. So that's one explanation. Another explanation is whenever we first estimated the quantity of sand that we needed for the emergency berm, we did 1,000-foot surveys, or the engineer did 1,000-foot surveys. That's, standard in the industry. And you can imagine we tried to account for as many of those scours as we could and give it an estimate of how much do we need to fill in the scour to put a berm on top of it. But so many scours on the beach in between 1,000-foot segments, you can see how estimates could either under or overestimate depending on number of scours. If there's a lot more scours that were unaccounted for, then that's another reason. And I'm sure I'm missing one more, and I'll get that report to y'all.
Did it have anything to do with some of the starting or the stopping and then starting again and sand
Yeah.
blowing
Oh,
away?
sorry. Yep. You jogged my memory there. Yeah. So whenever we start and stop because of the birds, we had storms, Idalia washing through, washing over, and dispersing some of that sand that we did put on the beach, and not necessarily getting accounted for in the as-builts.
Any other questions for Chad?
To your I needed to correct some of these figures that were on the financial impact. I know that's a big deal for us as a town. So you had mentioned that 1.2 million that you had gotten from Senator Rubio's office. So that's taking us from the 75% FEMA cost share up to the 90% cost share. So that's FEMA covering that. And then FDM and the town share being 5% each. And then we also got good news from our friends at Tidal Basin. Eliza let us know that we also got on the order of $398,000 from FEMA to cover the town's 5% cost share. And we're expecting, that we increased it by 1.3 million. So there's another 5% in there that'll bring it up to, I believe, 460,000 or somewhere around there. That we expect that to also be covered. So essentially this FEMA emergency berm is zero cost to the town.
That's a great update. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Anything else for Chad before he walks away? All right. Thanks, Chad. Is there a motion for resolution 23-151?
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 23-151.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Counselor Veach, seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next, we have resolution 23-153, ICS Materials, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, ratifying action of the town taken September 1st, 2023, regarding the waiving of the town's competitive procurement policy and contracting with ICS Materials, Inc. to take emergency proactive measures to remove hazards to the public health and safety from the beach, and approving payment of ICS Materials, Inc. invoice number 102423-01 in the amount of $220,059.39 and providing for an effective date. Andy?
Thank you, Mayor. Chad's going to come back and update you on this one.
Chad Schutz for the record. Yeah, so as y'all know, Hurricane Idalia was significant, caused significant overwash onto as far as Estero Boulevard and beyond. And there was a lot of both vegetative and, as they say, C&D, construction and demolition debris that was put onto the beach. We mobilized as quickly as we could under the emergency declaration to get that cleaned up and get the beach restored as quickly as possible.
For those that maybe remember that ungodly stench that was at Newton Park for a little bit, this is some of that stuff that was cleaned up.
Yeah, and again, it's that stench was on that beach, and if we hadn't cleaned it up, all that would have just been spread out, that same stench over miles instead of that concentration. So I appreciate everyone's patience in dealing with that at Newton Park while we did get it cleaned up.
Well, you put some very good pictures in the packet, so anybody that's wanting to go see what it looked like before that was cleaned up that maybe weren't down here, you did a good job of putting pictures in there for reference. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
And there was a massive amount of Ian debris that washed up. It seemed like it was like a migration of recycling bins.
Indeed.
Yeah, staff and ICS really worked hard and quick to get that cleaned up before Labor Day. So that was much appreciated.
Yep. And again, just to go over the finances, it looks like we may have zero cost to the town with this between FEMA, FDM, and hopefully TDC's beach maintenance contribution.
Is this, in your packet, you've got this listed at the 75% cost. This did not go, because it's a Dahlia, I suppose, it didn't go to the 90%.
Correct.
Yeah, okay,
And we don't expect it to.
right. Yeah, it won't reach that threshold. Any questions for Chad? Thanks, Chad.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Is there a motion for resolution 23-153?
So moved.
A motion by Counselor Veach,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Final public comment. Is there anyone that would like to say something in final public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Town manager items.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilors. I'd like to recognize our staff that has attended this morning. They're doing an excellent job in supporting your mission and the mission of the town. So I appreciate all they do. It really makes a big difference when we come together like we do, and the team that we've got gathered together and we've assembled. In a minute, I'll get Jeff Hauge, the Cultural Parks and Recreation Director, to give a Bay Oaks update. But first, I want to give an update on the Jacobs Group that I signed a contract with last week before last to help with our community development. They've the first day we signed the agreement was last Wednesday, almost 2 weeks ago now, and they brought in on Thursday an inspector, one inspector, two are coming in to do our building inspections. And on the first day, they conducted 27 inspections. The gentleman could have done more, but he didn't understand the lay of the town with addresses, so he just went. Once he gets the lay of the town, he says he can improve and will increase those number of inspections. And I think that's a great start. 27 inspections. Also, we'll have in-house plan reviewers, but they will be as needed type scenario. They're in Bonita Beach, and they'll come back and forth here, but we will have them in-house so they can reach out to staff, residents. They can reach out to contractors, architects. They can have meetings here with them instead of everything being Zoom or from a long distance or a distance away. Also be bringing in a building official. We still have Steve on staff who is a building official, so we have that. Steve's also a electrical inspector, so we've used him in pinches. So we've got a different dynamic now that kind of should help raise the bar. Not that it was not in a good location, but we were just trying to always find ways to continually improve and give back to the community so they can start building back faster. Also, we'll have 3 permit techs that will be coming in. Frankie's working real close with them to get all their laptops and everything up to speed. When they show up, they'll have our town logo on their shirts. Nobody will notice that they're a contracted employee or not. So we've got a really good start here for that, and should see a lot of change over the next 3 or 4 weeks. We have a meeting with them this week on Thursday, I believe, to go over a few things and just iron out a few things. I think it's been a seamless transition that nobody really noticed. And because if you get your one inspection, that's your one inspection. You don't realize that they're doing 26 others on the same time. And it really is a feel-good story, if you will, for staff and just helping us all galvanize together. Frankie and I have been talking about how we're empowering staff and trying to give them direction and help them to be able to make decisions. It's a work in progress. 6 months, as Councilor King alluded to. We've come a long way, got a long way to go, and we'll continue to work toward that end. I'll pause if there's any questions about Jacobs that I can answer.
Not any questions, but can you or Frankie facilitate with Jacobs potentially sitting down with one of our contractors that does a lot of work on the island that we've noticed have submitted a lot of permits, and walk through with them the process and where they see a breakdown in our process? If it's something as simple as mud, if it's something as simple as a link not working, something that we can go through the entire process from start to finish with someone that does it every day to understand where the hiccups are, so we can really focus in on the things that can very easily be overlooked and holding up a process for several days, maybe several weeks.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And didn't we do a while ago, wasn't there didn't we get the main contractors together in like a committee to talk to town?
There was things before Andy got here. There was there was a talk about doing that, but our legal counsel said that that can't happen. Because it's not a town committee, and there could be some issues with, I don't remember the whole dynamics
I
of
think
it.
there was sunshine law.
I
concern.
remember the issue, and I think the fact that we have new legal counsel, I think we ought to review that again, because I think it was a strange ruling, I thought, by our town attorney at the time.
Yep.
We had folks who were private citizens who were a part of this group. We had contractors, and they were meeting with the town manager to talk about best practices and things that they're running into and just offer suggestions. It was very friendly, it was very constructive, and it got shut down by the town attorney for, I'm not an attorney, but it seemed like pretty sketchy reasons. So I would encourage Becky to take a look at that again with our town manager, because I think the mayor's right, to have some kind of a working group to give feedback to the contract, to the town on process, back and forth, quite frankly, and how we can improve the process. I think it's extremely helpful. And we got such good feedback initially, then it just got shut down for, again, reasons that I thought were somewhat spurious.
Well, I think there's, I meet with people like that all day long, every day. I don't know where it would be a conflict of any kind of interest, or a sunshine law violation. It's this group here that I can't meet with as a group. But
If I remember correctly, it was something about the group of them being together. There was going to be 5 different contractors together in the same room. And there was something, it didn't make a lot of sense, but again, that was
I
what we were
mean,
given.
you wouldn't choose the contractors, would you?
No,
No.
it's all done through staff. They talk to and listen to, and it has nothing to do with any
No,
of the
I
council
can't,
members.
I have no idea why there'd be a legal objection to that.
Well, if we could look into that, and because I know that some contractors would be really interested in doing that. They want to help get the process as smooth as possible, so.
And let's add a couple owner builder permits, some just regular citizens in that as
Sure.
well. Some guys and gals from condos. Just so
Absolutely.
they can give you a sense of what they're facing.
obviously, I do talk to several contractors and have talked to at least 2 big ones in the town on a continual basis, just listening to what they go through. They're like, if I'm going through this and at the level that I am, and these are guys that have a lot of property, could you imagine the one off that they're going through, and then they don't have the resources this group has. So that's helped me and helped us get educated a little bit on that side of it, which we're not on, obviously.
Yeah, there's no question you guys and gals on the staff get this on a regular daily basis almost. But I think there's a comfort to the town know that there's actually a functioning working group that's providing feedback. I just think it gives people comfort knowing that you're hearing directly from customers in a sort of an organized and regular way. But I'm sure on a daily basis, you're hearing about suggestions and issues. And so
We can do that.
I think it's important is over the last year, we've heard from several residents, condos, builders, things that have come up since Ian that were some things that were on the books from years ago that never had any relativity to what has to happen now.
Right.
The EC zoning district for one, we just talked about the pools, things like that came up, things that can be brought back to the council fairly quickly through the LPA process and get amended if they need to be amended. So I think these groups could be very, very beneficial in streamlining that, the things that maybe our staff doesn't catch, or even builders. I've talked to builders that they didn't know some of these things that were there from 1999 or 2001 or 2002, because there was never a hurricane that brought them to light.
Right.
So,
it's not
we
a
can do it.
one-way street. The contractors and the folks learn from the town too.
Correct.
And it's a great sort of symbiotic relationship.
We can set that up. I'll get back to it. I'll get the information.
And I do kind of think that maybe, and I understand there's a lot of different people who could probably utilize this, but I think that maybe having separate groups, like if the owner builder group, because that means the interaction will be quite a bit different than with a bunch of experienced contractors. And I think just to be clear too, this is talking about process and not policy.
Okay.
Mr. Town Manager,
Yes.
could you just, for folks who are watching, let's break this down, this Jacobs Group paradigm shift. In essence, you're adding significant resources to the permitting process, correct?
Well, we're actually, yes, yes and no. We're adding them to our town, physically to our town. Before they were on the East Coast, so that we're kind of, still have those relationships, but we're bringing those services closer. So we are adding staff, we are adding some building officials, we're adding contracted permit technicians, that sort of thing, building official having a second and or third one. So we've got some dynamics that are changing. You're right. It's a shift in a paradigm because we have in-house and we have internal and external instead of in-house and out-house. We have that opportunity to be able to just maximize our opportunities by having more here in the town for our residents to draw upon.
And I know we've extended the permit or the relationship, the contract with the entity on the East Coast for continuity purposes as we transition. But so once that phases out though, and given the services that they would normally provide and how that's going to be replaced by the Jacobs Group, it sounds like there's still going to be, aside from that, additional resources coming to the town to help on the permitting front. And that's what I'm trying to make clear, because I think you guys have realized pretty quickly that we need to infuse additional resources in the permitting area, and you're to be commended for that, quite frankly. But so in terms of, it'll be 3 new building techs. Is that 3 new folks in addition to, aside from the contractual shift from from the East Coast to Jacobs, will there be 3 new techs as well?
Permit techs, yes, 3 trained. Has just about completed their training, and they'll be joining us as well.
And so when we have 3 new, how many do we have currently?
Be total of 7. We have 4 now.
So we're almost doubling the number of permit techs.
Right. The time when we went through right at the beginning, when Parks and Rec employees were in there helping, and the state, I think, brought some people in, all that, the day I started, all that stopped. We put them back in Parks and Rec, the state pulled theirs. So we're kind of bringing those resources back to get to the level that now we're starting to see that different uptick.
And you're not just enhancing the going from 4 to 7. These are folks that have experience. God bless the people that came from Parks and Rec, but they were just helping out. They didn't have the background.
Correct.
The people you're bringing in have significant permitting experience. Is that correct?
That is correct, and also been dealing with Hurricane Ian and the aftermath of that as well in this area.
So we're almost doubling the number of permit techs currently working for the town.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And we're in terms of the inspectors, how much? What's the number in terms of resource enhancement?
I believe we'll be status quo there. We'll be bringing in 2, but they're local. You know, I mean, when I say local, they've been working in the area. They're already, we've advertised and tried to hire them, and we've just not had success. But when you have a company like this that draws, that's what they do all the time. It just makes it quicker and easier for them to bring inspectors in and work through our town and work through the process here. So we should have 2 to 4 more additional inspectors, depending on the volume.
Needs. Yeah. And then you'll have a new building official with all the appropriate qualifications.
Correct.
And that person, even though Steve is now the town engineer, he will still be around to help. So you'll in essence have 2 building officials.
Correct.
Where originally we had 1.
That is correct.
I mean, I think that's tremendous. I think we need to tell that story. I think it's a good story.
Good.
Thank you.
I want to, I know I'll probably hammer this to death, but it's important for me. The process is a big issue in going through the entire review process and having 1 rejection letter versus 3 rejection letters or 4 rejection letters. To me, that is it seems as it's a very big time suck for our residents as well as our staff. So a priority for me would be to make sure that is something that is very, very high on the list to eliminate, to hopefully make the process a little bit easier if it's possible.
John Domer's the individual I've been dealing with Jacobs. He lives right in Bonita Springs, and one thing I've told him, we need to review our standard operating procedure and our policies in there and how we operate, and just if it can be improved, and we always believe we can improve, then let's improve it.
Well, and one of the other big issues that I've noticed in looking up a lot of these permits is that it goes to 1 reviewer, they fail it for whatever reason. When it goes back, it goes to another review,
right,
whether it's environmental, whether it's flood, whatever it is, and then it gets failed for something else and gets sent back. So you can imagine the frustration that it causes, not only for our residents, but us as policymakers,
right?
Because we hear it a lot, and hopefully we can take care of some of this low-hanging fruit.
Right, and what we've seen, obviously, and you have too, and everybody, it's the initial shock of the hurricane, and then cleaning up, and then now we've got to start our planning process. And you saw a group of a family in here today that's where they are. It's been over a year later, and now they're ready to start getting their building, their house built. So we'll see more of that now. Now we're going to start seeing people coming in with their plans ready to go. And we don't need to delay it. Obviously, we need to enhance our process to make sure that we're being receptive and reactive in a positive way.
All right. What else you got?
I would just, before you went on from that, I would just kind of, some moderation for it, because I think, one concern I've heard is that you don't want staff designing people's homes for them. It's really up to the applicant to have something that's reasonable to go in front of them. So I understand not wanting to say every time you get a single rejection, it's kicked back and you're back into the queue. But I think that there should be some limitation about how many issues they find before they kick it back. Yeah, maybe it's 4, but you don't want it to be 20 or something. You don't want to make it too burdensome for staff because one applicant really didn't follow, the guidance of the plans, didn't have a planner or whatever.
No, I get that, but I've heard from so many people that that's probably the biggest frustration that they have is it goes through flood and it comes back because of this, and then it goes through environmental and then it comes back for that. Whereas if they would have just sent it through, whether it's 3 things or 20 things, at least they can have one opportunity. Maybe that's their learning lesson, that I have to hire someone that knows what they're doing. I can't do this on my own. They can correct the issues, they can move forward, and then it goes through the next time and it passes. It doesn't keep going forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. And it's just a process to me that is very antiquated.
If I may interject something, Mr. Mayor, we've already worked out a preliminary way to alleviate that by getting the
Excellent.
planners together. And what we're going to do is we have our weekly meetings where we list out everything that's in front of them. All the people that have a piece of the pie, so to speak, are going to look at this unilaterally. If we have problems, we talk it out, we get it to the right people, it all gets handled that way. So it's no longer waiting on someone's desk that might have been on vacation or might have another project working. Everyone is aware of what's in front of them on any given week. So we can alleviate a lot of that low-hanging fruit that kind of got missed.
Well, and there's, not to keep beating on it, just some things that I've noticed, and I know I've talked to you guys about it, but when you go to our porthole and you look at it, I don't know if there's a way when we enter in things that are submitted, whether it's the acknowledgement, whether it's the, and whatever it is, whether it's a lighting plan, whether it's if when it gets entered in as a document that's on the bottom left-hand corner, that's a link, if it could actually say what it is. Sometimes it's just R2 or E4, and unless you take the time to click on that link, you don't know what it is. So with the abundance of permits that our staff is working through very quickly, if you don't see lighting plan, or you don't see flood plan, or you don't see the words, it's very difficult. You have to literally, some of these, even the commercial, you see 15, 16, 17 different links on there. And if you don't take the time to click through every single one, it could very easily be missed. So just a simple description of what exactly it is so that it's quickly recognizable, not just for our staff, but for the residents to be able to say, look, you sent me an email saying you didn't have it. Here it is, screenshot on it's right there. It's very easy to find. Can we move this forward? So I don't know if that's possible in our software or not, but if it's not, let's talk to the software people and make it happen.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. On the dais, I've given you the town manager's annual report that's required by charter. We can talk about it later, but it's pretty much just going over everything that's happened since May 1st. I didn't include anything prior to me coming. That way, it's a good benchmark, but we will continue with this practice, which is required, but also a monthly synopsis of staff reports and things like that, so you can have some immediate response and not have to wait for an annual report to get information. So this will be available on our website so the public can see it, and we'll be ready to answer any questions or any comments you might have. But this is pretty accurate. I had staff contributes to this, and we depend on them to keep up with their departments, and they do an excellent job, as I mentioned earlier. In a minute, we'll give a trailer report, but we did get an additional grant of $1.195 million from FEMA for emergency berm, so that's good. We got a deposit of $398,547 from the state for same on Friday. So things are progressing. We're still waiting for a lot of money to come back, and we will get that. We're following up with FEMA constantly. Tidal Basin is meeting with us constantly, and we kind of, have a different dynamic there to two new people you met with before last meeting, doing a great job with us there. Frankie's going to give a trailer update, and then Jeff will give a Bay Oaks Rec Center update.
Mr. Town Manager,
Yes.
well, you could go ahead and yield to Frankie, but I just, as we talk about the significance of the new infusion of human capital into the permitting process, a priority that's obviously very great for all on this island, which is wonderful. I'm just trying to understand also, Frankie, God bless him, has been also the Director of Community Development, right? Is that interim?
Interim, yes.
And so, which, I mean, Steve was wearing many, many hats after the storm, and far too many for one person. So the fact that you're doing that and having that subject matter knowledge, I think adds tremendous value as well, because it sounds like we're going to have a new building official. Will that new building official then be the community development director, or will you continue to wear that hat, or how will you, because if you're still involved in that, that means we have even more resources involved, which I think is wonderful, but I'm just trying to understand what the plan of attack is.
I think what I see as being something that's been effective and will continue to be effective, and we'll continue to review whether we've got an opening for a planner, how we want to do that. We want to bring a planner in to kind of take over community development. Frankie will still have our hands in that. I think it's just too much right now just to either bring somebody in new or somebody that even has some training from another position. This is, from experience that we both gathered coming in to the situation, it's a lot to soak in quick. We've kind of got a pretty good working relationship, and Frankie's, he's what is it? He's a unicorn. That's a new one. I don't know if I can say that or not, but he's just kind of fits a niche that we have that it's really been beneficial not only to me but to I think our town. There's some things that we're doing, some things that we're kind of looking at it from a different perspective, not from the inside looking out from a planner, but from the outside looking in, like a general contractor probably would from our background. So I think that's beneficial to what we're trying to accomplish by getting everything going as quickly as possible. And I think you see that a little bit with some of the things, Tuna Skin, for instance, comes to mind. Some of the things we worked through with them, and, Margaritaville, not because it was who it is, because it's what it was, what needed to be done, and what needed to be accomplished. So I think right now the dynamic is we continue to look if that right person comes that can fit what we need. I don't want to break a dynamic that seems to be starting to flow, but yes, I'm monitoring him constantly. It's like a ICU unit, just monitoring to make sure his blood pressure is good, he's staying level, nothing's jumping out. That's why we're sharing office, so I can look at him and make sure that we're doing the right things. But until and I think we've developed a relationship that if there's a problem, he'll say there's a problem. You guys can talk to him individually, but I don't think there's any need to make a change right now. But we will continue to monitor that to see exactly what's going to fit us best. Maybe we need to get to another plateau now. Got Jacobs in, and maybe we need to plateau off a little bit before we make that next step. Try to make a concentrated effort to do the right thing, so when it happens, it's seamless and we just continue to move forward.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful. And it was more for informational purposes. I think having Frankie directly involved in permitting has been extremely helpful. And I don't want to overwhelm him, but at the same time, I think it's another indicator that you're putting all resources available focused on permitting. And again, if we can address some of the mayor's concerns on process with those additional resources, I think we're really going to get our hands around this permitting thing. I commend you for it.
Trailers for sale or rent. What we're looking for is basically within the next 2 weeks, we should have the quad, which is going to be the formal town hall trailer being delivered on site on the Bay Oaks property. We're working with ICS as of last Friday. Jeff and I met with them to start going and developing our site plan as far as raising that area where the trailers are going to go. We're working with both Steve and Steve, our town engineer, and our water person to get in there and make sure that we have water main, sewer, all that ready to go. We're waiting for our friendly people at FP&L with those million trucks in everyone's driveways. to show up and actually take care of our driveway and hook up power to Bay Oaks, and we'll be ready to fly. That initial town hall trailer will be met with 2 double wides and then a triple wide by the end of the month. And we're also in the process of combining our trailers that we currently have on site. The one that we've been calling the town hall trailer, the little trailer off by itself, will be condensed as of the week of the 16th. We're going to be assimilated into the other 3 trailers, and we have already notified the state that they can start dismantling that off that property.
Can you, just kind of a little, are you done? Are you done with your, before we go to, Andy, are you done with yours?
No, I've still got Jeff
Okay.
talking about rec center.
Just if you could give an update on the CenturyLink boxes. I know there was a meeting last week. If you could just give an update to the people that are paying attention still.
Yeah, we've been talking, I talked to Becky a while back about, what we could do. So, that there'll be a code action, a case opened up against CenturyLink by the end of this week, strictly because I met with them early last week. They wanted to talk about progress of putting in fiber optics and getting to their customers and all that. And that was good to hear that, they're moving along and we're going to help them. But
Before, could you just share what their plans are for the island? Are they planning to put in pipe throughout the whole island and serve all customers in all capacity?
yes, sir, that is their plan. They would like to do they've been doing they say somewhere between 3,000 to 4,000 feet of pipe a week, underground conduit. What they want to do is do about 6,000 to 8,000 feet a week, linear feet, and ask us to up our utility locates. And so that's fine. We will do what we need to do to help them. But yes, they anticipate, they said it's a $10 million project. I have no idea of knowing if it really is, but I'm sure they get such a return on that investment once they start, getting all the customers hooked up.
Did they share a timeline?
They did not, but I know that they are under the gun to get some things done from what they were telling us. And of course, we can only believe what they tell us. Also, I said, well, while we're on the phone, we've got a problem, and we started to address the problem. And I now have a person and an email and a contact, and he said, I'm your contact. It's a new person in the game, an engineer or someone at a high, I can't remember what his title was, but I believe he was like a design engineer or the actual boots on the ground engineer. But he said that by the end of this week, they plan to have a plan in place and sent to me of how they schedule of replacing, putting these things underground in vaults or whatever they plan to do with the boxes that are obviously never be used again. They're trash, they're garbage. They're not going to use, they're not replaced. That's why they're putting fiber optics in. There's no need for those anymore. So we're holding them to it. But as soon as I hear that, we will let everybody know what they plan to do and how they plan to proceed.
Well, I would be very heavy-handed with them if it were me. They've kept giving us the runaround long enough.
Yep.
And these are public safety issues. Fence them, do something.
Yeah.
They've had enough excuses.
Oh, absolutely. Enough time.
I would also say that I think their original suggestion was to put orange bags over them. That seems unacceptable as a solution 1 year after
point.
the storm. Yeah.
Yeah, at this point, we agree. And I'll, get with Becky and see if we can, do some retroactivity on the code violation or whatever we can do. Probably not, but we will be moving forward with that as soon as again, probably go ahead and start that. And we've already started the case, already taken pictures of everything. So we're ready to go. And we're, Vinny is doing that and getting that ready to go. So they'll be put on notice really strongly very soon. So that'll come before you.
Yeah, I don't know what we have to do, but we're certainly bending over backwards to help them do stuff that's revenue generating for them. And they can't simply do something very easily. People are tearing houses down and getting removed in a day. They should be able to get those boxes out of there.
Absolutely.
All right.
Let's see what else. Jeff can talk more about this, but plans are coming really into focus for the December 31st, January 1st fireworks. So I just saw an email about some traffic and how things, the traffic plan. And so things are progressing quite nicely there. I know we're going to be planting some more trees in Times Square this week. So, a lot more things, and I'm happy to report that the clock did fall back on its own. So that was good. I worried about that. I'm like, last night I was asking, what did it? And then I'm like, yeah, perfect. It did good.
Could you you mentioned fireworks. Is that good? What's the town's role in that? And will they be lit from a barge, or do we know yet?
We do.
Good morning, I think. Yeah, still morning. This is great. Jeff Hauge, Cultural Parks and Rec Director, Town of Fort Myers Beach. So yes, the fireworks will be lit off from a barge just off of the pier. So same general location as where the fireworks are going to go before. The town's role is just to facilitate it. We're working on the permitting part for the road closures and all the special events permits that we need. Zambelli Fireworks is doing the Coast Guard portion of it, which they need to do. So that's well on its way. So we're excited to have them shut off at midnight on the 1st, and should be spectacular.
So it will be midnight as opposed to like when the sun goes down?
Midnight.
Midnight. Very
Yep.
good. Thank
Yep.
you.
So the bridge we have scheduled to be closed from like 11:30 to 1:30.
Have we worked out the nonprofit setup?
Yes.
Okay.
Bay Oaks.
And then let's give you a quick update on Bay Oaks. Just found out maybe about 22 minutes ago, I'd looked, that the building should, at least the switchgear should be energized today. So that's good news. We've been pushing them hard to do that. They gave us a pretty big timeline, but we also have a timeline that we need to get done. So FP&L said today that the work would be done today. So
Jeff, is that to energize the entire park or just portions of the park?
that's to energize the switchgear in the concession building, which also energizes Bay Oaks.
The building, the
So,
rec
yeah,
center itself?
Yep, yep. And then we can, once we get those trailers, we can maybe connect from there. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. So, but yeah, that's the main thing. Precision Power did a great job of getting that done quick. And so we're doing our part to try to get that building open as quick as we can and without any excuses. So.
Just one more housekeeping matter, Counselor Woodson. I just got a note that it looks like the school reopening is back on the 5th again. So it's Tuesday the 5th, and I'm guessing, Jeff, that you're ready with the before and after school programs as best as you can be?
Yeah, we are planning it pretty heavy before and after care. And I know I get a message from Counselor King about activities that we're going to have. It's not just going to be open for the kids. We're going to have our fitness equipment's getting delivered November 28th. We'll be starting senior programming, senior trips, hopefully like some adult like football or adult kickball, some youth programming. So we're looking at not just opening for the kids for the rec center, but opening at a bigger scale.
But sounds like you're communicating with Principal Kohler then with respect to the after school and before school programs?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
What's the estimated CO date for the rec center? Do we know?
We don't know yet.
hope
They
it's
say the
before
end of
the 5th.
November.
It'll be before the 5th.
Yeah, before the 5th. So we're having weekly meetings with them, if not daily checkups. Spend a lot of time down there, and we are really letting them know that is the date we need to be open. So there seemed to be more activity down there.
Wasn't it in their contract to
90
have it
days,
done?
which is, I gotta see when the actual permit was there wasn't an actual date. It's just 90 days after that they issued the permit.
Okay.
Yeah, Little League Field. Thank you for all that came out. That was a great celebration. Got a lot of good media for the town and exposure. The big ball field we are working on with ICS is kind of the same thing. We gave them the elevations of what we want. So they are going to start hopefully in the next couple of weeks getting that big ball field ready to go in the redevelopment plan. We have the company already vetted from before pre-hurricane. We get some updated costs that I can update you guys all on next meeting, but we are ready to push forward on that as well. Get that opened up because I know senior softball is bugging me in a good way. They want to get playing on that field, and we also want to use our facilities as best we can. Any other questions?
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, no, just, Counselor Beach walked out, but I'll still do it. I want to thank you guys for all your support and how you support us and the staff, and Becky, how she's fit in really well. And, I think you did an excellent job with your choice there. And I think we've really got something good going on here, and it's good to get that continuity and to get the interaction. And once we got everybody used to how people do things and how I do things and how I like to see things and how you like to see things. And we kind of mesh those together. I think, this community is very fortunate. And I hope, I know there are people that kick if they didn't have legs, but by the same token, there's things that we're doing. There's always a reason that we don't just do it just because we feel like it. We do it because and we checked and we all talk about it. So, one last thing as we get close to Veterans Day, I want to pay a special tribute to all the veterans and everything they've done for this country. And as we move forward, and our town hall will be closed on Friday in observance of Veterans Day.
Mr. Town Manager, since I see Barbara here, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but I see Frankie here, we're working on our monument for Bayside Park. Any update on that at this point, or are we just still working together either?
I think we're still waiting for communication from the artist, I believe, on that one.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Barbara, but you're a key integral part of this. Yeah.
Barbara Hill. Yes, I spoke with the artist who is currently transferring his home from Sanibel to Iona because of the damage that he incurred, not only to his home, but also to his studio. So we're waiting for that to happen. We're waiting for him to get positioned with his studio work. He's finished a couple of commissions prior to our having this conversation with him. So now I believe in sometime this month, I believe by the next week in November, we're going to have him come to the beach, look at the location, the site, and hopefully have one member from council and a member from staff join us and talk about the next step in terms of making that the Veterans Memorial happen.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is the artist is the gentleman who actually put the names on the Vietnam Memorial out in Washington, D.C.
Exactly.
So it's a pretty impressive catch for the town.
His name is Luke Century, and he's
Yeah.
been doing a lot of commissions all over the country, but most especially here in Southwest Florida. So it would be wonderful if we could have him do a work of public art for Fort Myers Beach.
I appreciate all your help on that, Barbara. Barbara
Thank
is an
you.
old friend of the artist, so it's just been very helpful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. Anything else? Town attorney items?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. Council member items and report. Councilor King.
I've got a couple. I represent the town on the Lee County Metropolitan Planning Organization. We had a meeting not too long ago, and I learned that FDOT's plan to add 8 bus shelters is set to begin in fiscal year 2025. And then that is in addition to what is already there, because Lee Tran will be repairing the existing shelters, and I don't have a timeline yet that has been shared on that. An issue has come up regarding condos. The Condo Association of Fort Myers Beach is seeking help at the state level to delay implementation of the mandatory reserve funding. That was part of the legislation that came about after the Surfside collapse with the milestone inspections that condos have to undergo. That was also part of it, to have the reserve funding in there. And it's a tough time for the condos right now because so many of them are still not habitable, and it will be a very deep financial strain on a lot of those associations. As a matter of fact, it would require big assessments, I'm sure, special assessments, and it may force a lot of owners to have to sell their properties. So if I know just recently we've had a couple letters go out to our Lee County delegation. If it would be possible to have a third one go out in support of those condos. This is just not a Fort Myers Beach issue. It's a statewide issue, but if we could do that in support of them to see if we can get some delay a year or two in the implementation of the reserve funding, that would be appreciated by those folks.
John, I was going to ask you, what do they have a time frame that their ask would be?
As the law, I think, mandates certain times, it all starts next year. As far as what the condo associations are asking for is at least a year or two in delaying the need to fully fund those reserves.
John, I just as one counselor, I would be in strong support of that. I was on a conference call with a bunch of condo associations the other day, and not only are you wrestling with, or are they wrestling with the reserve requirements, they've got challenges, of course, getting payments from insurance companies, but even more significantly going forward, we're in an extremely hard insurance market right now, and the premiums for condo insurance in particular are doubling and tripling, and you couple that with the reserve requirement issue, with the significant assessments that'll have to occur, plus just your annual quarterly dues, it will drive a number of people out of their condo, and it's quite concerning, but it's real, and so I would be supportive of that effort.
If the fellow counselors are okay to give direction to Andy to add that ask to our asks that next time we go up to Tallahassee, we can make sure that that is one of the direct asks that we speak to our delegation about, as well as the letter.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Vice Mayor Holt?
Yeah, an issue's come to my attention that it's quite self-evident, but I think for public information purposes, I'd like to talk about it. I see Steve here. I've mentioned it briefly to Andy and Frankie, and I've mentioned it to our town attorney. When people apply for an owner-builder permit, they have to sign an affidavit that basically says when the permit closes, they can't rent or sell their property for 1 year. And it's creating quite a bit of hardship for folks on the island who want to sell and or want to rent their property to get some revenue coming in. And I didn't know, I sent a note around to everybody ahead of time so they weren't blindsided, but I know a couple of folks on the island who are community leaders are going to approach the state legislators on this issue to see if they can get some either temporary or permanent relief. But I don't think there's a deep understanding as to why the legislature and the state put that requirement in. And I didn't know if anybody felt courageous enough to try to defend the state's actions on that, or have any thoughts, Becky, Steve, or Frankie, as to why the state is doing that currently, because again, it's presenting, and again, people knowingly had to sign that affidavit. Everybody understands that was something that they did. But given what we've been through as a town, I just thought there might be just a little bit of discussion as to why that occurred, and is there any benefit to potentially suspending that or reducing that timeline, given what we've been through? Anybody want to take that one?
Okay, well, this has been a requirement under the state statute for a long time. Now, I mean, I think it would be appropriate, if the council thinks it would be, to ask the legislators to give some kind of a reprieve for that. But the state statute's very clear, we have to do that. You know, they can't sell or rent for a year.
Yeah.
It almost seems like they're kind of implying that an owner builder is not as safe as a contractor. That you're
It
gonna
seems
wait
to be
till
the
you
inference,
know.
yeah. It seems to be the inference, yeah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it is an exemption from an otherwise, complete prohibition of people doing major construction without having a contractor who has to have, certain qualifications and that sort of thing. And so it's for both the occupancy and use of the owners for at least a year. Because, I mean, there are a lot of owner builders who might otherwise, they might have moved down from up north where they were builders or whatever, but some people do get owner builder permits and they don't have a clue. If I were personally to pull one, I wouldn't have a clue.
But they
So-
still have to go through all the same inspections that everybody else has to go through, whether it's a contractor or owner builder or whatever.
Right. Well, they do have to go through the inspections, but obviously the inspections are not, by passing an inspection, the town is not saying everything is perfect that was done. It's just that there's nothing noticeable that is a problem. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, I can't crawl into the legislature's minds on this, but I think it makes sense to ask them for some kind of a reprieve for a certain
yeah.
amount of time.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it to people's attention. I think, Steve, if you don't mind, I think too, when you apply for an owner builder permit, you still have to use for certain areas, you have to use a licensed electrician. There's certain things that you can't do and can do. Somebody want to take a crack, just so people understand. I just think it's important, particularly as we're getting progressing along, just people understand what they can and can't do.
And they're technically supposed to be on site, and there's several that are getting a permit and staying in Ohio or Minnesota or Iowa or wherever,
Yeah.
and not actually being on
Well,
site for the
I know
requirements.
the contractor and, you know, that lobbying group, that's a big, huge lobbying group in the state of Florida. So that's why that was put in place, because it's all about the dollars. So, yeah, I'm sure that's part of a bigger picture.
Steve Poposky, town engineer. I would suspect, and again, I'm speculating here because we don't know exactly why it was put in place, but the law generally, the broad law is that you need to have a license in Florida to do construction. You need to be licensed contractor. However, there's that exception for the owner builder. And in exchange for allowing owners to do some of their own work, they have certain stipulations. One of them is that it says if you sell or rent this property within 1 year of completing the project, it will be presumed that you did it with the intent to sell or lease. And so it's a violation of the law. And that's what it says. How that's enforced, that's another topic. It also says some other things like that you have to supervise the work. You can't just pull the permit and then have a contractor completely run the project and you have no idea what's going on. So that's a very common problem in the state, even with this exemption, because they definitely wanted to have people have the ability to do work and to, you know, save a dollar. But they didn't want, so they found some abuses with that, where people would just say, well, why don't you pull the permit? And what was happening was there were some unlicensed people that said, well, you can pull the permit, I'll just do it and under the table and so forth. It'll save you money. And then they got in trouble later with the work wasn't up to, you know, the quality that they should have done. So
Steve, just for public education benefit, if you pull an owner builder permit, are there certain things you can't do?
you can do, the way it's written, you can do for your own home or for a duplex. There's certain stipulations, but you essentially can do pretty much whatever you want to your own house as long as it's your house. You're not going to sell or rent it within a year.
You can do all the electrical stuff and.
Yeah, I mean, you can pretty much build your entire house by yourself. It's not something that I think any building official really recommends, but it's certainly in the law that way.
Thank you. I didn't want to get too protracted on that, but I just thought it was an interesting issue that's coming up, and I think we'll let the grassroots kind of stir up. They have a direct contact with their state legislator. They can carry that ball, and I just wanted to make sure we had a public discussion about it so people know that was going on. One other thing that's lingering out there and seems to be raising a lot of eyebrows is that we've got a constituent on the island who's trying to open a bar on Old San Carlos. Susie Q's Tiki Bar is the, I guess, announced name of it. And she's having some challenges with the state getting her liquor license because she didn't have one previous to Hurricane Ian, although she was pretty close to getting it. Sorry, thank you, Steve. I'm sorry. It's unrelated. And I just wonder if that's something that maybe we have a state lobbyist, Ron Book. I wonder if that's something we could bring to his attention to see if he could make some inquiries on her behalf with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. It seems like she's in a real difficult situation, and I know it's the state, not the town. That the town has actually, I think, been pretty accommodating to try to help her. And I know it's a state issue, but at the same time, we advocate to people on behalf of this. We advocate on behalf of our residents to the state on a regular basis for a wide variety of things. And just wanted to take the temperature of my colleagues to see if that's something we could bring to Mr. Book's attention.
We certainly can. We have, but we
Okay.
can again.
Oh, you have? Okay. I didn't know that.
It was, I mean, in our first meeting, it was very, very brief, but we did
Okay.
have the conversation along with all the other things that we were talking about. But as you said, this is not a town issue. This is a state issue, but he's certainly aware of it.
All right, very good. And then lastly, on the
Just
annual
before we move
report.
on with that, one kind of concern to me, and I was looking at Becky, is that advocating for one particular business, is that are we favoring a business? Are we doing something maybe we shouldn't? Or Are we going to advocate for everybody who wants a liquor license?
Well, I think it's a pretty unique set of circumstances. If you listen to her story, and given how close she was to obtaining a liquor license prior to Ian, I don't think anyone else would fall in that category. And given the personal hardships that I think that she's going through, I see your point, but I think there's enough unique circumstances around this one that it might be worth at least querying, because it sounds like the state has the ability, if it's a hurricane-related reason, to make an exception. And clearly, this is a hurricane-related reason. And I think given her unique circumstances, I don't know all the facts, but I've listened to her story, and it seems pretty heartbreaking, quite honestly. So if there's at least, if it could be brought to the state's attention that the town is at least, trying to help and advocate on behalf of one of our small businesses who's been in business for, I think, 3 or 4 decades. It just seems like a nice thing to do for the town, to encourage and help a small business that's struggling, that's, I think, in a pretty unique situation. I would agree with you if it was just like anyone else, but I think she's got a pretty unique set of facts that make her different than in this particular situation, I think.
And I'm just cautioning, from the legal standpoint. So I don't know, Becky, is that an issue? Does that raise any problems for you?
Probably not. I mean, if somebody else came with a similar circumstance, you should treat them similarly. But if it is a one-off situation, I don't see it creating any litigation or anything over that.
And with that, I'm in favor.
She had approached me about it and asked me to use my influence in Tallahassee to get a permit. And I said, I don't have any influence in Tallahassee. But what I did was I gave her the contacts that she'd call the lieutenant governor's office. We just had the same thing that had happened out here with Root Shrimp. And I said, just contact just like that and go through the process. Seems like hers changed from her initial application to her current application. I think that was the problem, was the fact that currently it was going to be a bar, but now it's going to be a walk-away service or a liquor store or something like. I don't really know all those details, but we have a meeting scheduled this week with that department.
Yeah, I
And
think
Frank,
because it's on wheels, it's like it's a trailer type thing until the building is, well, the building was almost ready, but then the building was basically wiped out. So it's a portable unit, and I think that's one of the biggest issues, unless they do it like Loyola, where they, try to make it stationary and that type of thing.
Yeah, we have a meeting set up this week with the Bureau of Licensing to talk about this and another issue here in town. So
this-
it's already.
This issue is actually on the agenda. Is Susie part of that meeting, do you know?
Part of it. I think it's just staff at this point,
Maybe.
just so we can get direction
Yeah,
first, sir.
maybe reach out to Susie ahead of time just to make sure you get an update as to what, that would be wonderful. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Lastly, I just wanted to lift up.
if I
this-
could,
yeah.
we'll definitely make sure that they get her contact information or vice versa. So she can, because being a conduit sometimes can get convoluted, in my opinion, as far as, who's on first, and then they call us, we got to call her back, so I tried to connect them, but we will definitely keep her in the loop.
Yeah, I think it's important for the state to know that we're watching this situation and would like to see some help if it's
And just-
possible. Yeah.
And kind of expand it, Jim, because I know that there's been, like with Tom, Leo, there's been a lot of issues with people getting a liquor license. They had to almost be a permanent structure, and that meant lifting up, and anything on wheels is not allowed. That maybe we could just lobby to say, can we get an exemption so people are allowed to have their liquor license on their property where it was licensed with a portable vehicle that is, the idea is it's not moving from the property? Because this is, that circumstance, really explained it. I've heard that coming from lots of different businesses.
Yeah, well, her challenge is that the attempt to assist that the town made after the storm said anybody with a liquor license or a restaurant before the storm could go ahead and operate in a temporary capacity. She was maybe a week away from opening, so I think she's in this unique situation. And again, facing tremendous hardship. So, but I think just the fact that the town's going to advocate in this meeting, or at least discuss the issue, give this agency all of her information, I think could be helpful. Just the more attention we could draw to it, I think could help in that matter. I just want to mention this annual report is spectacular. I hope the folks have a chance to read it online. It gives you a sense of the massive Herculean efforts of the town and the town staff, given the impact of Hurricane Ian. So I commend the town manager and the team of all the staff for all the work that's been done. I think there's one area that I'm going to call Frankie out on because I just don't think they do enough to tell their story. And I think we elaborated enough on the permitting emphasis, which I think is wonderful. But I think there's been a whole paradigm shift in enforcement as well. And I know that's still evolving, but I don't see a lot of it in the annual report, Andy or Frankie. So could you opine a little bit on some of the changes you're making in enforcement just one more time so we could get a sense, particularly as we present this annual report? I think it's worth mentioning.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor. Basically, what we did is we came up with a different umbrella for, we're calling it neighborhood services. We're calling it, one part of it is community, which is the Old Beach Patrol, or Old Base. And they're doing from beach to bay in the communities, looking for signs, people that need help, trash, anything that they can help our PW staff with, kind of be the eyes and the ears out there in the community. We broke it down into 4 different districts, so you don't see the same guys cruising up and down the island all day. So they're staying in their one little area, patrolling those streets, doing those things. And I hate to use the word patrolling, but it is what it is. You're looking for things that are out of place, trash, someone that needs assistance, anything that we can offer as far as an educational tool, perhaps to come and maybe get a piece of paperwork from the town or a contact that they may need. And then also to be just what they always were, someone to render aid in times of need, someone to get the proper aid on site as quickly as possible, and just kind of help in that aspect. The compliance component of that is the neighborhood services / compliance, and that's our old code enforcement. They're still doing the regular code enforcement as far as structure, from structure to ground. Outside of that, there's been a couple little hiccups here and there when they see things, but we're working through them and we're getting them and letting the people know. But basically, if you had something before the storm that was a fence, that was maybe a auxiliary structure in the yard, whatever it may be, we are here to work with you, not to try to give you a violation. Like I said, there's a few hiccups. We're still working out the bugs there, but we're trying to get people back functioning the way they were pre-Ian.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, Frankie, but again, it's the emphasis is on education and maybe
Yes,
a friendly warning.
Yeah, so
as part of the
it's
education
a
process.
3-step tool that we've been telling all of our people, and that's educate, and then try to get them into compliance, not violate, not try to issue a citation.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Music to my ears. Thank you very much.
And just while you're on that topic, I want to just continue along with it. I think I've talked to you guys too. I know some people who have had these minor violations in the past, and you've since rescinded a lot of those, but they weren't aware of that. Is there a place that, I know you're working on trying to reach out to people and let them know, but if people are listening and they have some outstanding issue, can they go on the permitting website to see that it's been rescinded, or does it still show there?
No, basically, it'll just show that it was still there. Through our software system, that we don't have a way to go kind of double back on some of that. So what we are trying to do is, after we get the flux of what I've got them working on currently, we're going to try to go back and reach out to these people that they did issue violations to in the past, and just let them know, either through phone call or through letter, that we have rescinded that, that there is no violation on the property for whatever the offense it may have been.
I would just, my preference would be to do that sooner rather than later, just because there's some people I talked to, they were kind of nervously waiting for a summons for the magistrate, and only to find out that really there wasn't an issue.
Yeah,
anywhere.
again, this is not a perfect system, and we basically have a limited staff, so we are doing the best we can, but I will make sure that we double our efforts, sir.
And I appreciate the direction.
Anything else, Vice Mayor?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council Woodson?
Yeah, so I just want to give you all an update. I sent this around to everyone last night, just on the pier and the work that's being done by the citizens and businesses of Let's Go FMB. A couple of weeks, just to give you kind of a background on this. So Commissioner Hammond had done a presentation, if you will, to a real estate symposium, and he had made mention in that meeting, if we want the pier back, the fastest, easiest way to do that is to build back exactly what we had. And so I was given that information. I contacted him and he explained that he had heard this through um, staff and the county manager's staff and FEMA, and he encouraged me to reach out to Commissioner Sandelli, which I did. So long story short, we had, and we've all seen the presentation that Alan Shanoski did. He had gone literally on his own time, his own dime, and gone all around the state of Florida looking at the newest building of piers and construction and talked to people and made this great presentation. Commissioner Sandelli has seen that. County Manager Dave Harner has seen it. We've all seen it. So we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago after that presentation, and it was County Manager Dave Harner, his staff, there were FEMA representatives, Commissioner Sandelli was there. And basically what they said is, yes, you know, that is the easiest way to get the pier back. And we were pushing back and saying, but what if we wanted it bigger, better, new, different? And they were very interested to hear what constituents had to say in that. And had we done anything reaching out to constituents? So light bulb went on. We created, not we, the peer committee of FMB, Let's Go FMB, created a 7-question survey that we now have some results from. And that's what I sent around to all the council last night. But basically, this survey was completed by over 9,000 registered voters, residents of Lee County, as well as visitors that come to our area. It was broadcasted in local media, distributed on a lot of FMB social media pages, through the chamber, local restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. So the results came back and it was 98.5% of the survey results, and that's 8,816 respondents that basically said they would like to see an improved FMB pier. Not a replacement of what we had, but a pier suitable of what the growth of the community would represent. So I'm not going to go through each question or anything like that. You all have that, but so what's happening now is we have another meeting set up again with County Manager Horner and his team on this Thursday to go through those survey results with them. They asked for feedback from community, residents, tourism. We got it. This is still open. We're really trying to hit 10,000 responses. We have over 9,000 right now. But we will take this to them on Thursday. We've kind of modified the presentation. We truly have taken out anything connected with Lynn Hall Park or Times Square, focusing strictly on the pier discussion. And that is what will be presented to them on Thursday. And hopefully we might be able to move the needle. We don't know, but at least it opens it up to a lot more discussion, a lot more consideration. And we've gotten a lot of input from constituents and tourists and everything else that hopefully will make a difference in what they're looking at or what they're deciding to do. So we're really trying to work in partnership with Lee County. Whatever they've been asking for, we've been trying to accommodate and oblige. And so we're hoping that this meeting on Thursday will help us move a little bit closer to that. You know, this is a long process. We all know it. No matter how the pier is rebuilt, it is a minimum of 4 to 5 years getting through all of the permitting and the zoning. And now you're working in with, you know, a lot more entities outside of just Lee County and the town of Fort Myers Beach. So there's a lot more hoops and hurdles to go through, but it's a start. And so we're hoping for a very positive response on Thursday, and I will update you on that at our next meeting.
Very good. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Counselor Beach?
Yeah, like I had a conversation with someone who's very active with the local churches, and this is kind of aimed at Jim a little bit here. And there's a lot of concerning things about the churches. I know that that there wasn't consensus on council to try to push for housing through the Resilient Lee, which I think is the strongest potential funding avenue we can go down with that. But a while ago, there was a suggestion that we reach out to churches and see if they're interested in selling part of their lots for a housing project to take the proceeds and rebuild their church, a smaller church and a smaller lot. I'd just be interested in really, if we can maybe have some representatives from the churches come to town council and let us know what they think, where they're going. So we can see if there's a way we can help facilitate that important part of our community getting through this.
I would be in support of adding that to an MMP for discussion.
Yeah, I think I think having it that an M&P would be fine. I think the churches are in a wide variety of positions. I think I heard just the other day that Chapel by the Sea and the Lutheran Church are joining together for some joint services on the island that I think are going to begin either this past Sunday or this coming Sunday. You've got Beach Baptist that has its own plan of attack, which I watched one of his services the other day, and I think that the financing issue, they're having some, the financing is on hold for that project at Beach Baptist. Church of the Ascension is planning on rebuilding, but that's significant time period away. So they're in a kind of a different phase. St. Raphael has been active. So, I mean, everybody's in a different stage, and I do think they're trying to communicate, but certainly having them here, just not just for housing issues, just to try to see how the town can help them and partner with them and encourage them, I think would be great. But again, everybody's in a really different place, and it's been tough. So and then you've got a wonderful infusion. There's a service at the Mound House on Saturday at 4:30, and that's a church that's trying to they're trying to supplement what we have, and they're doing good work. So if you want to try to gather them all, Bill, that would be wonderful, and have them come to an M&P. I think that would be great. But I wouldn't focus it just on workforce housing. I would see what other potential needs and challenges they have, and see if there's other synergies where they could work together and the town could partner with them. But I'm open to any kind of discussion on that.
And I'm not looking to force a solution on somebody, but if I have, the more solutions we can offer, the better chance to find one that fits. And what I'm kind of asking, Jim, because you are well connected with these churches. So could you take the lead on that to get these?
Well, I could, except you got a little bit of a challenge here, and it's a little delicate only in that we have one church, Beach Baptist, that put forth a very aggressive workforce housing plan, and it's on the table as we speak. Like I said, I think they mentioned, Pastor Kritzer mentioned in his Wednesday service, or maybe more of a meeting, that they're having, that the financing of that is on hold for a bit. So that's a potentially a case before us. And it's its own unique plan separate from the other churches. So if you want to have a workforce housing emphasis, I would yield to you on that. But if it's a broader conversation on how we can help the churches, I just think they're in each in a very unique individual place. And I do think there's a comity amongst them, and they're working together where they can, but everybody's been dispersed. We've got this diaspora of folks all over Lee County and all over the country right now that have been very active in these churches, and it's really been a challenge. So,
and I think, the other thing is, and it kind of reminds me of where we are as individuals on the island, because everybody seems to be on their own path, how fast you're doing what you have to do. Are you rebuilding? Are you remodeling? Are you in a condo? Are you in a single family home? I can see how the churches are in the same kind of, they're on their own path, and all of them have different management. Some of them you have to go up almost, to the Pope to get anything to do. And others, they have very local.
Yeah, it's actually absolutely, that's a big challenge. Some of these churches do not control their own destiny. Some absolutely do. Yeah.
And the other part that's very important to me is that a lot of these churches are in residential areas. And I'd like to help the churches, but I don't want to, encourage commercial intrusion into residential areas.
I think, again, having this on an MFP, if for nothing else, to have some updates from the churches as to where they are You know, look at the property behind us. They've now since got that cleaned up. I know there's been some people asking, you know, some of the churches haven't done anything, and just getting an update as to where they are working. I know that the staff has been working with them as well, but it'd be nice to hear from them, and if there's anything we can do to help them or figure out a path, as you were saying, Councilor Beach, to what are the next steps. I think that could be a very useful conversation.
And I think there might also be some grant opportunities that they're not aware of. It'd be worth investigating.
Yeah. Do we, along those lines, Mr. Town Manager or Frank, do you guys, it sounds like we've contracted with a grant writer. And is that maybe when the churches come to kind of share with an update, maybe the grant writer could actually attend that meeting and, or I don't know, at least by phone, I don't know where this person is, but maybe they could then listen to some of the needs and concerns and see if they could figure out a way to help and partner.
Absolutely. We'll ask her to tune in.
But I'll yield to the town on reaching out to each individual because I don't know what the schedule is and which M&P it would fall on. So if the town wants to reach out to the churches and invite them at the next or whatever it ends up, I don't know when it's going to end up. And maybe the town clerk could figure out where it's going to fall in the next M&P schedule. But I do think it's a good idea to hear from our churches and to see what their needs are and see how we can help and partner with them.
And with that, that's all I have, Mayor.
All right, I just have a couple of things. Speaking of in partnership with the county, I just got word that they are going to be increasing their cleaning services for the porta potties at Lynn Hall Park. If we could do the same, as we're starting to see more and more people come into the town.
Yeah, we vacated ours at Lynn Hall Park that we moved from Times Square, so
Oh,
we no
okay.
longer have those.
We don't. That's
No,
what-
sir. The only two, the only ones that we have left are the ones right outside the window here, and those are
Those
going to be
good
going
ones,
away
yeah.
soon.
Right,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
I wasn't sure if they were gone yet or not, but. So just an update. I know we did get an email earlier this week or late last week about that specific issue. So the next meeting on Thursday, just so everybody knows, will be upstairs. It won't be in this room. I'm not exactly sure where upstairs yet.
Third floor.
But
It's on the third floor in the Citron Room.
Third floor
In the
of
upper room, yeah.
because they have something going on here. So be the third floor. So in case you show up and nobody's here, that's why. That's M&P on Thursday, yes. And then just a quick update. We did go up to Tallahassee, Andy and myself and Chris Holly, our Ron Book put together a meeting with all of our delegation up there where we were able to sit down and spend some quality time with each one of them and let them know what our appropriation asks were going to be this year, at least the initial appropriation asks, and they may change between now and our next visit, but we do plan on going up at least one or two more times to have the ability to complete our case. We were able to thank them for the almost $2 million that we did receive from them through the last year on top of some of the other things. And then we obviously had our delegation meeting. Councilor Beach, I know, was there, as well as our fire district and a lot of people in support of pushing back on that merger. So just to give you an update, everything seems to be going as planned, I guess, if you could say it that way, but we'll keep you updated. We're also trying to put together a plan to get up to DC to speak with our legislators up there in regards to the HUD funding. So we'll keep you updated on that. Other than that, I have nothing else.
I was just going to say, Mr. Mayor, thank you for doing all that. I don't think people realize the challenges of driving up to Tallahassee and meeting with and herding cats up there respectfully with all the folks up there. It's a lot of time. You're trying to get your house and your business back together. I just appreciate your time and efforts on behalf of the town.
Mr. Mayor, you may not know, but obviously special session started today. One of the things that's coming up was a dahlia relief. Was there any indication that during this special session there would be coming anything out regarding Ian again, or?
Not specifically, no. It's similar to, if you remember what they did last year with the special session, specifically about Ian. It's been told us that it's similar. It's going to be similar to what that was, specifically about communities affected by a dahlia. Not anything to do with Ian. There'll still be, under normal session, there'll be still conversations about obviously Ian and moving forward. That'll be taking place for years. But I think this special session is specific. I just got an email while we've been sitting here. I get an update of all the things that they're talking about, and there's really nothing in there that pertains to Ian directly.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you for the kind words, Vice Mayor Adderholt. It was much easier this time than last year. Now at least I know where I'm going, and I can't say enough about the lobbyists. I know before the storm, none of us that were involved got a chance to meet Mr. Book. He would come down maybe once every couple years and was kind of like a ghost, but I could tell you he and his staff really worked extremely hard on our behalf and get us in front of the right people. And he's a well-respected lobbyist up there that when he calls, people answer the phone. So I think we're in pretty good hands going forward this year and thank him and his team for all the help that they give us when we go up there. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Counselor King,
I'll second.
Counselor Beach second.